So about television, what do you remember about what like when you first discovered television? What was that like for you? I will start with Chris.
Television is pretty basic. When you look at the standpoint, because again, you're looking at growth, of course, how to make more revenue and things of that nature. So, uh, entertainment wise, in the '70s, you probably had a lot of detective shows during that time. You had Columbo and Starsky and Hutch and shows like that that were changing the landscape because variety shows, the '50s and '60s, were becoming downplayed and eliminated altogether. So the next format that was working was detective shows. So that was the flourish I saw in the '70s, going back in hindsight. And then you look at the '80s and '80s, well, all different. So whatever stirs the market, whatever stirs the eyes on the screen from a TV perspective, that this is what they had, of course. So as long as you look at the '80s, for example, and this is way before the stuff that he got into, Bill Cosby on NBC. Bill Cosby changed the landscape because he had what?
Yeah.
The Family Show. The other networks are to copy their own versions of their own family shows and things like that. Why? Because the genre was popular. So whatever genre was popular during that time, that's what happened.
What about you, Nihar? When you what decade you were born in, Nihar? Like the 90s, right?
Yeah, 1994.
So what do you remember about technology back then as for TV? And you were growing up in the era where it
Hmm.
was after video games had started to become a big thing.
Yeah, I had the I just remember like what I had. I mean, most of the stuff I had, I guess, was I guess it won't be 1994. It'll be more like 2001, 2002, something like that. So I remember getting the Game Boy Color for Christmas of 2001. And
Okay.
I had this big like CRTV in my bedroom when I was younger, and I had that actually maybe just a few years until before we moved into this house. So that would have been like I don't know 2001, 2002, all the way maybe to like 2000. I'm gonna say we probably stopped using it in 2010, and then we actually got rid of it in 2016.
Okay.
But I just remember like those big CRTVs, and then I think me and my sister went to this like daycare when we were really young, and they had the N64. Again, this was probably also like
N64, yeah.
2000, 2001, something like that.
Okay. And what about you, Rob? You were pretty much born around um
Yeah,
that time
80s,
I was
frame.
born in
90s.
the I was born in 1994, but we didn't really like using all we weren't like really using all of this stuff until like 6 years later. So
Hmm.
Okay.
I would say for me, yeah, it's one of those eras. It was one of those funny eras because, middle '80s, you're starting to talk about 24-hour news, and then you're looking at this is the era of action. You're looking at Jerry Springer. You're looking at,
Jerry Springer.
like you were saying, Chris, just about the type of tech, just the type of TV where people wanted action. You had the rise of and it's kind of crazy because you look at the '80s, and you look at today. That was like you were talking about the Cosby Show. That was the rise of some good intelligent black television. And you look at now, and it's like what 30 years later, and it's kind of decreased a little bit. Now I give credit to the irrational shows like that. Shows I absolutely love because those I call those '90s like shows, and hopefully they continue. But those type of shows, like the Cosby Show, you had Martin, you had a lot of great shows. And the good thing about the '90s television is that we all watched the same thing and we didn't judge. It was just everything was just fun television. Like I'm a huge Seinfeld fan. I love Seinfeld. Like everything was good, everything was wholesome back then. To your credit about the televisions, like back then, you had people want the big, huge televisions, and they were so big. And now you look at televisions now, they're not even that big. People absolutely used to go crazy for televisions. Now you just go to Walmart and whatever, who cares? Black Friday, let's get the
Yeah.
TV. Now it was just like, oh, okay, so TV, who cares? So yeah, that era was definitely will never be duplicated ever again. The late '80s, early '90s, middle '90s, Not only from a technological standpoint, from just an entertainment standpoint, you'll never see those days ever again. If we do, we'll be blessed. But no, from the talk shows, all that, no. We'll never see that again. Daytime television, etc.
You cannot respond to that, Chris.
Oh, you're absolutely correct. Especially the talk show era. Everybody and their mama and dog had a talk show back then. I mean, you got Geraldo Rivera, Jerry Springer,
Ricky Lake,
Sally Jesse Raphael. You can go on and on. Even Tempest Bledsoe from the Cosby Show had a talk show, and that stunk to high heaven. No offense. So it was not a good program because it was cheap to make. All you had to do was pay the host. He or she give them the contract, and everybody else a peripheral. So it was very cheap to produce, very cheap to make. So all you had to do was put it out there to see if the landing would stick. But a lot of those shows were just crap. But as a matter of fact, there's an excellent 2-part docuseries on Netflix about Jerry Springer. If you grew up in that era about Jerry Springer, even didn't know anything about him, that's must-see TV because you get the behind the scenes of the insanity that they brought to the screen, which is also insanity. So when you look at those type of programming back then and go back to what Rob said, we were all on one accord. There was a slogan that NBC used to have, must-see TV. And that's where that slogan that come from. Because it seemed like everybody would be at the television sets at a certain time, no matter what time zone you were, obviously, and you watch the same thing. So nowadays it's all scattered all over the place. And it to some degree, it's great, but it always comes with a price. So are we still cohesively together on this, or are we a bunch of rugged individuals? So that you could pick and choose when I go the rugged individual part because the evolution of television to some degree could be a de-evolution depending on how you look at it. And so again, depending where we get information from, we get your entertainment from, and I totally agree with Rob. The Irrational is brilliant. I watch that and recorded DVR all the time. I think Jesse L. Martin should get some sort of Emmy because he nails the character from the standpoint of, and the first time for me, having seen television over the years, where you see everybody of different races, different backgrounds, different creeds in these episodes of The Irrational. And that to me more is the microcosm of our country, not to just one particular race.
And don't forget Montel Williams and the Arsenio Hall show.
Oh, well, Arsenio was lightning fantastic. Yes. I mean, Arsenio changed the game.
Yeah.
And Montel Williams was always one of my favorites. Real quick, he used to have this psychic on named Sylvia Brown. Yeah. And Sylvia Brown was a psychic that came on once a month. Quick story behind that. He had her on as the first guest, and it just said during the episode, "I do not believe what you're saying." All these type of things. So she said, "Okay." She predicted his multiple sclerosis and predicted him being divorced, and both came true. And ever since then, he had her back on the show. So go figure.